Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this live Q&A for the English Language and Linguistics subject area. So congratulations to any of you who already have an offer to study with us. This is a competitive program, so you must have submitted a really good application, so well done. And welcome to those of you who are thinking of applying. So we hope this event will be kind of useful for whatever stage you're at, for understanding our programs and getting a feel for what we do and for what it's like being here in Glasgow. So you'll be meeting three of us today, although we're part of a much bigger team of staff and a thriving, quite large postgraduate community of students as well. So the three of us are the MSc conveners for our three MSc programs in our subject area. And you work quite closely with your respective convener, depending which program you're doing, over the 12 months of your MSc. So your convener is here we're here to ensure that you have a smooth path through your studies and through the year of your MSc. And we're here to help, and we're kind of a point of continuity and a point of contact throughout the year. So just to introduce ourselves, so I'm Dr. Alison Wiggins, and I'm the convener for the MSc in English Language and Linguistics. But as I say, we have three MSc programs in our area, so perhaps my other colleagues would like to introduce themselves. Piotr?
Yeah, hi, my name is Dr. Piotr Węgorowski. I'm the convener of the MSc in Applied Linguistics, which here at Glasgow we understand in a very broad terms. So it's not just language and teaching, but language in the social context more broadly, but that's something we'll talk about in a moment as well.
And Rachel?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Rachel Smith, and I am the convener of the MSc in Speech, Language and Sociolinguistics, which is a specialist program focusing on social, speech-based and psychological areas of linguistics.
Great. Yeah. So we're going to be hosting today and talking you through some different aspects of our program and answering your questions. So I'm just looking at who we've got here and the questions. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But we'll maybe talk for a little bit first just about. I mean, one of the things we're most often asked about by potential applicants or by offer holders is about how our programs are structured and how they're delivered. So we could, while you're thinking about your questions and thinking about what you might like to ask us, we could maybe sort of tell you a little bit about that to start with. So this is your MSc. As I say, it's 12 runs for 12 months, whichever program you take, and you have 2 semesters of teaching, and you take a range of courses across those 2 semesters, and then that's followed by a dissertation project. You have the opportunity then to move through to an independent study dissertation with a supervisor after you've completed your coursework. So for the 2 semesters of taught courses, all of our students in preparation for the dissertation, everyone takes a research training course, and this runs across both semesters. So whichever of the 3 programs you take, you'll all be together. All of our MSc students are together on that research training course. So you really get to be part of the bigger cohort of students during that course. And it's preparing you for independent study and for different approaches to building and designing your own research project. So preparing you for being an independent researcher. And we have one colleague, Professor Bartlett, who convenes that research training course, but quite a lot of us actually contribute to the research training course. So you actually get to meet quite a lot of my colleagues and staff members, as well as visiting speakers we have a program of through that research training course. So everyone does that, and then depending which program you're on, you will take a series of option courses. So if you take the course the program that I convene, the MSc in English Language and Linguistics, you would take 2 option courses in the first semester, and then 3 option courses in the second semester. And for the program I convene, English Language and Linguistics, you have really full flexibility about which option courses you take. And so that's a really important distinction about choosing that particular program is it's very flexible. So we have a wide range of courses. We can say a bit more about that, but you can really build your own program from really across the whole range, whether it's medieval literature or phonetics or semantics or name studies. You can pick a whole range of courses. So that's one of the kind of strengths of that particular program. But we have our 2 other programs. So perhaps Rachel, would you like to say a bit about the distinctive difference and the distinctive strengths of the SLS MSc?
Sure, thanks, Alison. So the MSc in Speech, Language and Sociolinguistics is an accredited programme, which means so it's accredited by the Scottish Graduate School of Social Science, and that means that if you've taken this programme, you can go on and apply for, if you wanted to continue to further study, you could apply for funding from the Scottish Graduate School of Social Sciences, which is open both to UK and international students. And one factor in that accreditation is that the programme includes another core course in addition to the research training course that, as Alison has said, everybody does. So there's a core course in experimental design and data analysis that everyone on the SLS programme takes. And this is a course which trains you in quantitative skills and sort of experimental thinking in ways which are typically very useful for dissertations in phonetics or sociolinguistics or psycholinguistics, but they're also a pretty useful transferable skill. So this course in experimental design and data analysis is open to students on the other programs as well, but it's compulsory if you're taking SLS. And while I think many of us in linguistics find quantitative skills challenging when we first encounter them, they are super useful when it comes to thinking about language from a kind of data-driven perspective. So this is a really kind of foundational course that is part of this program. What else is different about SLS compared to the ELL program that Alison's outlined? Well, it's more specialist. So in semester 1, you take 2 option courses, and one of them needs to be a course in either phonetics or sociolinguistics. We've got a range of options here so that the program is suitable both for people who might have done some previous study in phonetics or sociolinguistics, and for people who are completely new to those areas but know they're interested in them. So if you're new to it, you can take introductory level courses in phonetics or sociolinguistics, and if you've got some background already, you can take advanced level courses that are more about kind of directed reading and specialist engagement with sort of more advanced topics in those areas. And then in semester 2, again, you take 2 option courses, and one of these is going to be a methods course in either phonetics or sociolinguistics, where you really delve in and do an individual project and get to grips with research methods in those areas. You can do both if you want, but if you want to just focus on one, on either phonetics or sociolinguistics, that's completely fine. And for your other option, you've got the full range of flexibility to choose from all the courses that we offer. I think that's the main differences between SLS and the other programs.
Yeah. And Piotr, the applied linguistics then has a slightly different structure again, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Alison. So I think the Applied Linguistics program, from the point of view of the structure, sits between the two programs we've talked about. So Alison outlined how the English language and linguistics is very flexible. You have the one research training course which runs throughout the year that everyone takes, and then you can choose whatever you want in the English language and linguistics. Rachel just talked about speech language and sociolinguistics with a bit more restrictions of what you can choose. You still have a lot of choice, but you're a bit more restricted. And applied linguistics is also a specialist program in that we have one extra core course. So in the second semester, you will be doing a course called Applying Linguistics in Social and Professional Life. And it's a course that aims to introduce you to various areas of applied linguistics. As I mentioned already, here at Glasgow, we understand applied linguistics to be a broad discipline. It's not just language teaching and learning, even though that's what many of you might be interested in. And many of you actually might have experience of being language teachers and find it quite useful. But what we aim to do in that particular course is really to introduce you to a range of different areas that can be studied from an applied linguistics perspective. Personally, I'm interested in professional and institutional discourse, for example. I've worked a lot in legal settings and workplace settings as well, so I touch on this in that particular course as well. We discuss various research methods that can be used, so this course really complements nicely the research training course in preparing you for your dissertation later on as well. So that's just the one extra course that you have to do, but apart from this, you are free to choose many options. So you can choose any of the options we have available. We have designed bespoke courses with applied linguistics students in mind. They're open to anyone, but we definitely encourage people on the applied linguistics program to take up those specific options. And these include things like language learning variables, forensic linguistics, which is a course I offer and looks at language in legal settings, broadly speaking, critical discourse studies as well, offered by our colleague Professor Tom Bartlett, or systemic functional linguistics as well. So there's lots of options on offer. You can build your program around your preferences, and I think that's what unites all of the three programs, but in slightly different ways. I think that encapsulates the difference I wanted to mention.
Yeah, and I'd probably, just to pick up on what you were saying there, Piotr, was some of our courses are designed for a student coming in who hasn't done the topic before, whereas we have other option courses which are designed for people who are already at quite a high level in the particular specialist area. So that's something that you would discuss with us at the start of your studies, and it may be that you do a combination of those. So we have kind of different levels at which you can come in for the different option courses in some cases, which gives that extra kind of flexibility, because we tend to have students coming onto our programs from different backgrounds, which gives us a very rich student cohort and a lot of really interesting perspectives that are coming to the subject area. But we do have a structure that can accommodate that as well, depending on what you're bringing at day one when you start with us. So maybe the other thing that we're often asked quite a lot. I'm just keeping my. Oh, we've got a question in the chat. That one's for you, Piotr. So you could have a look at that while I'm chatting now. So the other thing we'll go on to talk about in a second, that we're often asked about when it comes to structure of the program, is how you're actually taught. What's it like being taught on an MSc program? What happens in this teaching? So it's maybe worth mentioning a few points here about what to expect. So some of the teaching across the 2 semesters might be quite familiar to you, and there are some lectures, for example, but some of the teaching might be a different style of teaching to that which you're used to, depending on your previous studies. So I would emphasize that quite a lot of the teaching is focused on small groups and small group work and seminar groups, and also on actively encouraging students to actively participate and to be, engaged in a process of sort of active discovery as part of their learning. Rachel might like to come in here a bit as well, because quite a lot of in different ways on different courses, we have quite a lot of kind of lab-based type work, but that's obviously becomes really important on the SLS program in particular. That's something you can speak about.
Yeah, so we've got in phonetics here, we've got a phonetics lab, and quite a lot of our research and teaching is done there. So if you take the phonetics courses, you will, as well as learning about phonetic theory through lectures and sort of standard seminars, you'll also spend a lot of time learning how to do speech analysis using speech analysis software, and we've got, we're very well set up for that. We'll train you as well in we've got quite a range of equipment which you can, if you're interested, you can learn to use our ultrasound equipment and our eye tracking equipment to carry out experiments of different kinds. So yeah, there's quite a lot of sort of hands-on work, and phonetics being a practical subject, there's also the sort of practical side of learning to produce and to perceive the fine detail of speech sounds from the range of the world's languages. And then likewise in sociolinguistics, there's our courses there have a strong project component, so you'll be doing you might be doing some hands-on analysis of speech from a corpus that you've built yourself, or one of the corpora that have been developed here at Glasgow. So yeah, quite a lot of practical teaching in this area of the subject.
Yeah, for sure, and it comes into in different ways in different courses, I expect. So there's that combination of the theoretical and the more discursive aspects in your seminar group studies, but then there's often, we try to encourage the kind of active, more practical exercises that would come in even in some of my courses. It's quite strong. So I teach, for example, on quite a lot of my courses deal with historical texts. So one of my courses on editing, it's actually asking students to start to build a digital edition. So giving you some of the technical skills to work with markup and to work with text analysis. And that's true on the corpus-based courses. So you're actually kind of making something in a hands-on way, in a kind of that sort of lab-based environment, but it's obviously different in different types of subjects. Piotr, did you have anything you wanted to add there about the kind of delivery and what happens in seminars that you're with your students?
Yes, that's a great question. I think that's something that a lot of students are surprised at when they come here, especially coming from different backgrounds. I think we do offer, particularly in applied linguistics courses, which might not be as technical in some respects as, for example, the phonetics-based approaches that Rachel outlined. So we very much value a small group teaching scenario. So you will be there with your peers, discussing the questions that we ask you, coming up with solutions as well. So it's very much a group work exercise. We see ourselves as teachers facilitating the classes rather than telling you exactly what it's like, and nurturing critical thinking, which I think is a central skill that we all aim to instill in our students. And I think that leads me very nicely onto the question that we've had from Ayu. Thanks for that question. Asking about critical discourse analysis that you're interested in is definitely something that comes up in a lot of the courses. So I've mentioned already we have a dedicated option that you can study just this in this particular course, but it's something that comes up in other areas as well. You mentioned you're interested in educational applications, so we do have a course called Global Campus, which really interrogates those questions of what does it mean to study in higher education institutions around the world now in terms of languages that are being used. Is English always dominant? Is that a good thing? Can we resist that? What's going on there? So you can see that a lot of those critical questions come up in many different courses. And I think that's something that, as Alison mentioned as well, we're here to guide you as program conveners to try and tell your program to your strengths and your interests, to make sure that we can cover what you're interested in. And I think the other point as well that I wanted to make here is that even though we have those very specialized courses, I think you can often see links between them, sometimes in very unexpected places. But I think that's also one of the strengths of our programs, where even though you will learn one specific thing in one course, that might resonate with ideas from other courses as well. And it will definitely enrich your experience by having the variety of different approaches and different courses.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we often think a lot of us enjoy when you get to the stage of producing your dissertation and designing your dissertation. It's very exciting to see sometimes how students make links across the range of courses that we teach, and it's kind of your opportunity to think about how we define the subject area, really, and it's through those kind of innovative linking across different aspects of our programs that can sometimes happen. So it's always great to see what topics people come up with. I think just one more thing to add there about the delivery of our programs is that we're aware that it's sometimes a different style of teaching, or style of kind of group work sometimes that students are used to. But I would reiterate what Piotr says there, in that we do our very best to try and encourage you to develop your critical thinking and also to build confidence. So we really want to focus on creating a supportive environment for students in our seminar groups, and a supportive, inclusive space for those kind of discussions when we're working with you in seminar groups, and kind of thinking a bit about sort of this kind of support for students and what else is on offer. Something that students, I think, really appreciate and talk about is the sort of university-wide student learning development service. So you have your seminar tutors and your conveners on our program, but then there is also the student learning development service. So there are quite a lot of courses and a whole team of staff who will work with you on things like writing skills or academic research skills, and a lot of our students have benefited from that. So anything else, Piotr and Rachel, that you would mention there in terms of that kind of student experience and going through the programs, kind of things that people have benefited from? I think the learning development service is one that's often appreciated.
I think just that we're quite available. We're very available to students.
Yeah.
So we all have, every staff member will have an office hour at least once a week, and we really like it when students drop in and come and talk to us about the ideas that you're having and the work that you're doing on your assignments. So there is quite a lot of kind of personal contact with the people teaching you.
Yeah, so we have an in-campus office hour. We encourage you to come along and just talk to us, ask us questions. I've got another question there, but so I'm going to answer. We can move on to that in a second. That's a great one there, I can see. Anything else you wanted to add there, Piotr, before I steer us in another direction?
I think just to reinforce this idea that we're always here for students, and I think this is really true. I think Rachel mentioned we love it when students come and talk to us in our office hours. I know that for a you watching, I think that might seem a bit scary, and it's maybe not something they're used to in other contexts. And I think we've put a lot of work in trying to convince people actually we're here really to chat, whether it is about your assessment or about how you're kind of getting on in general. I think people in the past have really benefited from it. And I can see that those students who come in and talk to us, you can see them flourish throughout the degree as well. Yeah. So that's something that I would definitely emphasize on the one hand, and on the other hand as well, I think you will have the group support of your peers as well. I think we have a lovely community of students as well. So it's great to see that, you won't just have us to rely on, but you'll have a great group of friends really who you'll end up seeing a lot and working with a lot. In fact, in some of the courses, you are encouraged actively to form study groups so you can learn from one another. And that's something that we really want to encourage. We have reading groups as well, where people come together and discuss things. There's lots of stuff going on. So you will never feel alone, that you're just doing things on your own and you come to class and leave and that's you. There's definitely a sense of community here.
Yeah, and a lot of that learning, it's happening outside the classroom, isn't it? It's in the seminar series we have throughout the year, the LingSoc, so the English Language and Linguistics subject area focused students have a society which is very active. They've got a Twitter account. You can have a peek at what they're up to. And then we have several reading groups that are very well attended. Rachel, there's a lab lunch as well, isn't there? It's been really successful.
That's right. So in the phonetics lab, we have a weekly lunchtime seminar, which is usually a visiting speaker. These days, often, because we can have talks online or in a hybrid format, we can have people from all over the world telling us about their work in progress, or students and staff here at Glasgow are presenting on the research that they're doing. And one of the things that this that this leads to is there's a good level of interaction between students at different levels. So as a master's student, you'll meet a lot of PhD students and find out from them about their sort of academic journey. That might be something you want to pursue yourselves. And you'll also, at our research seminars and sometimes in some of your classes, you'll meet some of our undergraduate students as well. So there's quite a lot of opportunity to kind of interact as a community, not just with other MSc students, but also with students who are a bit further along the journey.
And that, so I think there's probably a bit more we can say about community, but just that, I think brings us to sort of that point about thinking about where our students go next. And so I want to say hi to Haruki in the chat. Hi there. Thanks for your question. And so you're asking about what kinds of work students usually do after graduation from our programs. So yeah, so it's a great question. Piotr, do you want to respond first? There's there's a really wide range of different areas, but I'll let Piotr speak first this time.
Yeah, absolutely. As I've mentioned before, even though we see applied linguistics as a quite broad church, we welcome everyone from various different subdisciplines. We do have a lot of students who are interested in educational settings. So quite a few of them go on to work in teaching roles. So one of our graduates, for example, managed to get a job pretty much straight on teaching Turkish to other students as well. So obviously that's the background this particular student came from, and they were able to secure a job with the skills that they've acquired on the course. We have a lot of English language teachers as well. So that's one of the key and very popular career options, I would say, but it's definitely not the only one. People will end up in various careers. I think it's important to recognize that actually the skills that you gain during your master's, and I don't think it's specific to applied linguistics, it applies across all the postgraduate degrees, are really transferable to a lot of settings, particularly in an area such as English language and linguistics, where we make our living through communicating, and that's something that you can apply to any settings. And we've had students ending up in sectors such as marketing, for example, even tourism industry. I believe someone has worked for a travel agency, which is not an obvious choice, you might think, but it's something that they definitely wanted to go to anyway, and they found the skills that they've acquired in the course of our degree program quite useful in that context. That's the one. Yeah, I think that's the examples I can think of now.
Yeah, there's other examples include lexicography and dictionary making. So a few students gone on to work for the different dictionaries, heritage and museums. Some of the students have a particularly strong interest in heritage, particularly if they're taking courses on the historical side, but those questions about how we make historical texts accessible and how we make those historical texts speak today and make them relevant today is an interesting one for librarians, archivists, museums, heritage generally. We've had students go on to work in journalism, student support, different areas of education, advertising, marketing, recruitment, and Rachel's speech therapy, of course. Maybe you could speak about some of the more specific training, actually really targeted training towards graduate attributes.
Yeah, for sure. So our program it's not a vocational program, so it's not going to give you a qualification in speech therapy, but several of our past and current students have gone on to do some further study in speech therapy. So they've studied phonetics and they've realized that they're really, really interested in speech and all the other aspects of language processing that a speech and language therapist might work with. So they've gone on to do further study and to qualify and work in that area. I suppose the other thing, I completely agree with all the areas that Alison and Piotr have mentioned, and those apply to SLS as well. Sometimes as well, students go on to work in technical areas like data science or software development, having kind of realised that they've got quite a technical interest in language. There's obviously lots of areas that where that is useful in industry.
Yeah, definitely, and kind of the digital humanities and that kind of area as well. I've got a little bit more to say there, but I want to jump into the questions. We've got a couple of questions there. So hi Nisha, hi, good to have your question, good to hear from you. So Nisha asks if there are any preparatory study material references for applied linguistics courses. Piotr, what would be the best place to look for that or to think about preparing ahead?
It's great to see you're very keen to try and prepare. I think I can understand where people are coming from. Trying to do as much preparation as you can. I think, as we've mentioned already, though, the challenge here is that we have people coming from various different contexts and various different backgrounds. Some of them who have studied linguistics, for example. Some of them would have not. We've had people coming in from different backgrounds, modern languages, literature, and other areas as well. So I think it's always very tricky to try and suggest specific targeted resources. The main thing I wanted to emphasize, we don't expect you to do any preparatory work before you come. We've structured the program in a way that really allows anyone at any level to join in, whether you've done a bit of study and you can just further this, or whether it's something that you're coming in from a fresh perspective. We'll give you all the resources you need when you get here. What you can do is you should be able to access some of the reading lists that we have available, and that's another issue as well. You might not always be able to access them if you're not a student just yet. This is why I'm quite hesitant to provide specific resources at this stage, because it can always be tricky to try and access those. So I think this is really my general advice. I think you can read around and maybe have a look at the reading lists that we have available, just to give you a sense of the type of things that you'll be learning, but you're definitely not expected to do any preparatory work. And in fact, I think it probably pays off to wait a bit until you get here to really find out what you're interested in and how you want to shape your trajectory of your degree.
Great, yeah. And we have another question as well. So I'm not quite sure how to answer this question. So hello, Ming Chuang, good to hear from you. Thank you for your question. And your question is, to what extent are courses such as Introduction to Sociolinguistics or Methods in Written Text Analysis connected to the English language? So I'm not sure if you mean to what extent those are looking at approaches that we then apply across a range of different languages, or if we're always those courses always deal with English language. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of both, but obviously we are, most of our a lot of examples are using the English language. But Piotr, do you want to, or Rachel, have you got? I want to make sure I've understood the question, if you see what I mean.
I think I interpreted Ming Chung's question the same way as you, Alison. That is it, how much do we look at languages other than English? And I would say quite, it is quite possible to do that if that's what you're interested in. I mean, I've certainly in my area of phonetics, I've supervised dissertations on a range of languages. So just to think back to last year's ones, there was one on Vietnamese and one on Japanese, which I don't speak, but the students were native speakers of the languages, and with the tools that they'd learned in the courses for language analysis, they were able to kind of take those tools and run with them and work on languages that were of interest to them. So quite a lot of our teaching does start from English, because we're an English language and linguistics department, but we're a linguistics department, so we go into other languages as well. Piotr, do you want to add something there?
I think that's absolutely spot on. I mean, the idea here that we can only teach what we're experts in. So I think we'd be very hesitant to teach, for example, on a language that we don't really speak or understand, but we're more than happy to encourage students to think just beyond English. I know I do it, for example, on a course I teach on multilingualism, which I think by necessity I have to talk about a range of languages, but I do it by referring to students. And I think it's great to see the diversity of students and what they bring to the classroom, so we can reflect on the rich and diverse body of students and the languages that they speak. And I think that's one way of doing this. As well as Rachel said, people work on the dissertations that incorporate different languages as well. But even within our subject area, I think we are very much English language and linguistics. But even, I mean, in the context of Glasgow and Scotland, we're in a very particular sociolinguistic situation with Scots being present, and we have a number of colleagues who are very much interested in study of Scots, which is also very much present. So even though we are English language and linguistics, we often travel to other areas and we look at what interests us, and we very much encourage our students to do the same.
And that applies too on the historical side. So approach to medieval literature, for example, my colleagues there tend to be very interested in the multicultural, multilingual development of the language. So English in its very much in its multilingual contexts of that period. So that can involve crossing between different languages, or looking at texts that are multilingual texts themselves, or borrowings between languages and the history of the language. But it to some extent depends on, if you were to focus on that, it would depend on your own interests and which languages you're kind of confident in handling, how far you want to go with that as well. So it does come in, I think, to all the different aspects of our subject area. If you're looking at medieval manuscripts, it's probably quite hard to find a monolingual medieval manuscript. That would be quite a funny thing. So great question. I think hopefully we've answered that. We've tried to answer that. So hopefully that's what you meant. If not, and we've missed the point there, then you can do tell us, and we'll have another go at it. So I wanted to kind of circle back a little bit, thinking about the question we had about graduate attributes and what our students go on to do, because there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. One thing I didn't mention is that we have a dedicated member of staff here called Laura Tansey, who works specifically on graduate attributes, and particularly works with students to develop their graduate attributes. So things like how do you develop materials for job applications? How do you think about shaping your own career? How do you articulate your transferable skills? So the things that you're doing, the courses maybe that you're interested in, or you're starting to discover new courses as part of the MSc, but then how does that translate into wherever you go next? So I think our students this year really enjoyed the session and working with Laura on graduate attributes. So that's one thing I would mention, kind of as we have these other parts of our program as well beyond the actual academic courses you're doing. And And then the other kind of area, thinking more about the academic side, I suppose, that the other area that students go on to is further postgraduate study sometimes. So some of our students are particularly interested or thinking about going on to do a PhD for, might be different reasons for doing a PhD. So the masters, the MSc, can be a way to sort of test out if that is or isn't something you might want to do. So you get a year to sort of think about those ideas, and also it's a year when you can talk to us or work with us on thinking about what that PhD might look like. So in our subject area, I would emphasize that probably one of the strengths of our subject area is the how many of my colleagues are very much leaders and innovators in their own research and scholarship areas. So we've got a lot of quite high profile projects. We've got the historical thesaurus, we've got the several projects on Scots and several projects on in the area of phonetics. The Scots Syntax Atlas, the Sounds of the City, Seeing Speech. The Mapping Metaphor is another huge project. So if you're interested in semantics and thesaurus work. So these are all kind of really world leader, genuinely I would describe as world leading projects among my colleagues. And then that very much is one of the reasons why people sometimes want to carry on with their academic studies here. So that's another important area. And we've got a thriving community of postgraduate research students as well. So I just wanted to emphasize that kind of research aspect. Piotr and Rachel, did you have anything to add there about PhD study as another kind of one of the other things our students do after their masters?
I'll jump in here maybe. I think just a quick word. I think what you've said about trying things out is absolutely true. Yeah. Some of you might be thinking, I definitely want to do a PhD, but you give it some time. I think that's my piece of advice. I think while we do have some of our graduates have gone on to do PhDs, in fact, I've just had news from one of our alumni who's managed to secure a place in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember right, working on the educational linguistics. It's great news, absolutely fantastic, and we're definitely here to support students who want to do this. But I would also encourage anyone to think about masters as time for exploration. It's the time, it's the year of your life where you really get to learn new things and really test things out and see whether they work. And if an academic career is for you, that's absolutely fine, and that's something we can have a chat with later on down the line. But I would definitely encourage everyone to try and think about learning and absorbing the atmosphere of the masters. I mean, personally, I know that when I did my masters a few years ago now, it was definitely one of the best years of my life. I've learned so much, and it's definitely something I would like to replicate for students when you can learn things that you didn't really know existed sometimes. And I think that's one of the valuable things of doing a postgraduate degree in the first instance.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I think when I did my master's, which is a very long time ago now, I don't think I knew what a PhD was to begin with. But by the end of my master's year, I thought, oh yeah, well, I'm enjoying this. I'd quite like to stick around and do some more of it. But yes, it's a great time to spread your wings intellectually and to learn more about areas that you like, but also to discover areas that you didn't even know existed. We find with our linguistics masters, we do always have a mix of students who come in having studied quite a lot of linguistics before, and students who have come from other areas but through those studies have thought language is really, really interesting, and so they're coming in kind of quite new to linguistic study, as it were, and our courses do kind of cater for people in both of those situations.
So I'm aware of time and sort of heading towards wrapping up a bit more now, but I meant to one thing we haven't really talked about is just being in Glasgow, which we were supposed to talk about. Really wanted to talk about, and about what a nice place it is to live. So we have all moved to Glasgow and decided to stay here. Actually, as it happens, some of our colleagues are. Have been here for longer. Some people have moved here from all around the world and have decided to stay. So it's maybe quite a good perspective, actually, that we're the people who've moved here and decided to stay. And it's a great place to live, and it's a great place to study, and a great place to be part of the university community here as well, I think. So I was thinking about how I would try and describe the campus and describe what's great about Glasgow. I'm not sure how to do that, really. You can help me out, but I certainly love our beautiful campus, and we've had Glasgow is very famous for its architecture. So everywhere you walk around in Glasgow, you will see very stunning and very unique 19th century architecture, from the sort of Harry Potterish buildings in the centre of the university through to all the streets around Glasgow that surround us. But at the same time, we now exist in a very modern campus. There's some very beautiful sort of state-of-the-art modern buildings as well that are very well used by students and staff, and very nice spaces for interacting in. And so these two things are mixed, and the campus is very sort of integrated with the West End of Glasgow. So as you walk around the campus, you're also sort of very connected with the life of the city, and the museums and the shops and the music and the restaurants are all sort of woven in with the campus, which is one of the things I really enjoy. It's a very nice place to be. Piotr and Rachel, how would you describe being here, and what you enjoy about being in Glasgow, or what your students tell you as well?
One thing that I love personally, I mean, it's a fantastic city to live in. There's a lot going on culturally. There's a lot to do. You're never bored or lost for something to do. But at the same time, you can hop on a train, and within 45 minutes, you can be in Loch Lomond and be surrounded by absolutely stunning Scottish landscapes that are just like very, very. We're in a city, and we're in a really vibrant city, but it's also really easy to kind of get out into the beauty of the nature around us. I have to say, I'm saying this on a gloriously sunny April day. It does sometimes rain. It will rain sometimes when you're in Glasgow, but in fact, a lot of what's around us is so lovely that it's really beautiful even through the rain.
There's always a bit of drama in the weather. There's a bit of Gothic drama in the skies. And Piotr, how about you? What's your take on?
It's difficult to add something, because it is really genuinely a great place to live.
Yeah.
As I think both of you have said, I mean, there's loads going on culturally. I mean, I'm not very much into music, but I know people who are, and that they love living in Glasgow. That's the place to be, for example. I think that's one of the key things that really comes to mind for me, even though it doesn't really directly affect me. But I think it's a great city to live in, but it's also a great city to be part of more widely. And I think at the university, we really aim to integrate ourselves as being part of the city. When you come here to study, obviously, the university should be the center of your focus, but also we want you to do other things. And sometimes we want the two to interact. And sometimes we can do it in our teaching and research as well, thinking about, your surroundings a bit more. So I know for one of the classes I teach, for example, I get students to go out and observe the linguistic landscape of Glasgow, where you really learn about your environment, and you can feel even more at home, I'd say, to try and understand where you are and what's the history of that place as well.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, from my point of view, I love old manuscripts, and we have lots of old manuscripts as well in Glasgow in our special collection. So yeah, there's different parts of the city and resources as well that actually come directly into your studies at different points. I can see one more question there in the chat. Hello, Letitia. Hello, thanks for being here. Thanks for your question. You have a bachelor's degree in English language arts teaching. I want to study sociolinguistics, but do I still have to take the TEFL? Is that a question for? Is that the English language requirement, or is that to do with the courses here? Do you understand the question, Piotr?
I think.
All right.
Sorry to leap in.
No,
think
go for it.
that's a question about the English language requirement.
Is it? Yeah.
And you might both have better answers than me, but I think it depends. If the medium of your first degree was English, if you studied an English medium first degree, then you won't have to. But if not, then you may well have to. But indeed, I think the best approach is to check directly with the admissions team.
Yeah, I think that's a question for the. So when you apply, your application goes to the centralized admissions team, and then at another stage, it then comes through to us to review the academic part of that. But those questions about the kind of exact constitution of the form you submit and when that happens, how that happens, should be done through that team. So I think the link will flash up in front of us in a moment as I'm speaking, just to remind you where that admissions portal is, and also the postgraduate hub, which has a chat facility. So I think they can also give you the link to that. So I think hopefully to ask there. All right. So yeah, so Ming Chuang, thanks so much for your follow-up question. Yeah, you want to make sure the materials are primarily from an English background. Yeah, certainly you can primarily work in English language. So we talk quite a lot about using our methods for other languages or multilingualism, but you can certainly do our programs and very much stay within the English language if that's what you want to do, for sure. Okay. So just in the last, we've just got a couple of minutes left. I was just checking the questions there. So I would say, first of all, do now keep in touch if you have more questions or you would like to talk to any of the three of us as conveners individually. So my email address is, you've got my name there, you've got the spelling of my name there. So it's alison.wiggins@glasgow.ac.uk. And all of our email formats are the same. So it's the name at and then @ glasgow.ac.uk. So you can email any of us, and it would be useful if what flashed up now was the link to the staff profiles in our subject area, so you can see our email addresses. So you really are very welcome to contact us individually if you've got questions, or keep in touch that way, make contact that way, and we'll try and get back to you. So to just wrap up in the final minute, so I think thinking about sort of final words to leave you with, I think I would probably emphasize as a takeaway that our programs are very student focused, in that we want you to choose the right program. So I hope that what we've been talking about today helps you to think about which is the right program for you, depending on what the kind of structure of program that you want. And if not, then do ask us about that. So we are aiming to produce programs that will be supportive for you and will be the right match for your interests. And we've got a lot of flexibility and a lot of capacity to be able to do that within our very sort of broad-ranging subject area. Piotr and Rachel, do you have any final points you would like to leave people with before we say goodbye? Any other points that you'd like to emphasize?
I think I'd just like to say that we're a friendly bunch. We are. We really enjoy, all of us as staff really enjoy the level of kind of personal engagement and contact that we're able to have with our master's students. It's teaching you is a part of our work that we really, really value and love, and each year we're just excited and thrilled by the range of projects and work and the new ideas that our master students come up with. So yeah, we really like working with you.
Great. Any final word, Piotr, and then we're gonna be cut off.
Yeah, I think this is just to echo the points that have already been made. Really, I think, and Rachel talked about us being really keen to welcome anyone on the program, and that's absolutely true. But I think I have words for you, whether you have applied and you've had your offer already, or whether you're thinking about applying. I think this is a great opportunity, and I think I mean, have fun. I think that's the kind of word and piece of advice I have. It can be tough work, and I know some of the students find that's a lot of work, especially when they start. They get used to it very, very quickly, and we have right amounts of support to make sure that everyone can thrive in the environment that we have here. So there's definitely lots of hard work, but it should also be enjoyable, and we're here really to make sure that it is the right setting for you to explore further study, grow as a person, grow academically as well.
That's great. We've got one final question from Niken. Hi there, thanks so much for your question. It's a great final question. What's the big impact that graduates of applied linguistics can have for society? I love this question. It's true that there's so much, in fact, across our subject area, we're often even if it's maybe not obvious why to start with, you'll find that people are really thinking about real world and present day problems. And I would argue that even for those of us who work on medieval manuscripts, it's like, what does it mean today? What difference does it make today? A lot of my colleagues are thinking about things like sustainability and language and climate change and language. So this is what we're very interested in. But Piotr, I maybe give you the final word on that because it is an applied linguistics question.
Oh, yeah,
put you on the spot.
I know, but the answer to this is not very easy, I'm afraid. I think, I mean, it's great that you're asking this question. You're thinking about what you can have. It's absolutely essential, and I think this is something that we very much want to encourage everyone to think about. But the answer to this might sound as a bit of a cop-out really here, but it really depends on you, really. I think we're here to try and encourage you to do things that you think you're able to contribute. And there can be many different things. It really depends on your personal interest as well. I mean, I've been working a lot, for example, with the police trying to improve their practice. So that's a very specific example of this. But there's many different ways in which you can influence the society at large. It can be very small steps to start with, but it's always worth thinking about those big questions in the back of your mind as you go through your degree. And that's definitely something that we want to encourage and nurture among our students. So I'm afraid I can't give you a specific example of this is how you do this, but there's definitely many ways in which you can, whether it is through education and making sure that people have better access to education, whether it is through ensuring they're aware of language issues in other settings. I think Alison mentioned our colleagues working on sustainability. So the way we talk about climate change can have a really serious impact on what people actually do. And there's many different areas like this that you can really think about your influence.
That's great. I think we're literally about to be shut down. So thank you for all these really lively questions, and hopefully see you all very soon. So just for us to say goodbye.
Thanks so much for coming along. Nice to see you here, and we hope we'll meet you
soon
later in the year. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Do get in touch if you have any questions.
Yes.
Yeah, just email us.